Oh, Robert Peter. Very cool.
It's similar, not the same, but it's kind of crunchier. All right, so then, yeah.
Oh, Robert Peter. Very cool.
It's similar, not the same, but it's kind of crunchier. All right, so then, yeah.
Call this meeting to order. December 21st, 2021, Board of Education special meeting. Ms. Hageman, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Reese,
Present.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Here.
Mr. Elam,
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
All right. The items that we have selected for the special board meeting is response specifically to the EL construction project. Turn this over to Mr. First.
Yeah, on the agenda this evening for consideration, which should be provided to each of the board members as an attachment, and I think it's also probably in public view as well, are the first four pages of the GMP2, which is guaranteed maximum price for our ELP project. As you can see on the front page is some demographic information on our construction manager, also our architect, Bethel Local Schools information. Article 1 entails or involves money associated with the project, different funds that cover the construction manager's costs, the percentage of contingency that we have in place, and different activities. If you scroll to page 2, it talks a little bit about the estimated cost of work and the various subcontracts below it as far as subcontracted work, self-performed work, personal conditions that exist, etc. You can also see the CM, which is the construction manager's percentage fee for the building packages, and then also kind of a projected timeline date as far as when 90% completion of the site work will be done, which is August 1 of 23, et cetera. And then Article 3 entails list of exhibits. And then Article 4 is signatures for the GMP2.
Okay. I guess maybe one of the things, since we've been voting on items, I'm just going to go backwards just for a step. And are there any comments with regards to agenda items or questions?
Oh, sorry, did I skip that?
No, it's not on the agenda.
I didn't see it. Yeah. You see if there's anything.
Oh.
But, no.
The top one.
No. Okay.
Two people.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're one?
I was just trying to support.
All right.
Okay. All right. On this one, the items, do we have a motion to approve the GMP amendment number 1.2?
I'll move.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have a second? Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lada, for the second. Discussion?
So are we not, we're not gonna talk about me at all, we're just.
So we're at.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I just wanted somebody to go through it for the public to, a brief, analysis or summary or something.
So we did share it in the public view, so everybody can see it.
The 4 pages.
Yep.
By discussion, Julie, you mean like what changed from the last time everybody would have seen it?
Yeah,
this
what
budget to
changed
now?
and what numbers we're at now.
I don't know, did we ever put this out? Once before?
Like detail now as far as numbers, I don't know that we had any numbers.
We went out to bid, December 3rd?
Right.
And this was the results of all the bids that came in, and I always find GMP interesting because it's not really a guaranteed maximum price, but we try to work within that. It did come $1.4 million over budget, but it was much better than other districts have seen, so we were happy with that. I think we were trying to work backwards and create a static budget. It was really hopeful that we might get the 5th grade wing back, but that didn't happen. But not saying that we can't, but at this point that wasn't included. So there was a lot of discussion about the various costs that are in place. And I feel confident suggesting it to the board because I think that everybody did their due diligence in trying to get the best pricing available at this time. And locking something in now, because we're probably going to see costs go up rather than go down in the next 2 years as we work to get this building in place. So, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I think it's important that we mention there are 3 contingencies. Our owner's contingency, which is 2.5% of the budget. I think it was 700 and some thousand. There's also a construction manager reserve of around 400,000. It's slightly over that. And then there's also, because of the cost of steel not being able to be priced until it actually arrives in 9 months, there's also contingency dollars there. So I feel at least like we've tried to put plenty of contingency money in. I mean, we'd love to have another, probably double what we have, but it's at least reasonable with the market conditions where they are.
You did those 2 backwards. Okay, still.
Yeah, and the other one was 450 some thousands. They were both around 400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second thing is our variance to OFCC was denied for the integrated blinds, but we were able to pull a little bit out of contingency and go ahead and fund those. So we will get credit for those during the latter part of the project. If we had not gotten OSDM compliant blinds, we could have lost between 0.4 and 0.5 million dollars, the match on that, which I thought was pretty significant. So and thanks to Peterson and Garmin Miller, who were able to get that included. Trying to think if there's something else. We did fund some of the utility and water and sewer costs from our general budget. Those were unforeseen costs. That is not included in GMP. That was like $239,267, but we have to have electricity and we have to have water and sewer. That's really not a choice.
Right, one of those is the $183,000
Sorry.
multi-year contract that you are to vote on. Those are not co-funded by OMCC, so willing to take those out of this budget so that we can make sure that whatever we spend on the building will be co-funded. right?
Yeah.
So take those out. So we're gonna try and pay those from our current operating budget, which is the 183, and I think it's 56,000 and some change for the tap fees and things of that nature.
And you didn't have the exact bill, so you couldn't.
Right, I don't
issue
have a
PO
bill,
yet.
they don't really give you a contract for that, they give you a bill.
then-
So, yeah.
Then the fourth thing, which our audience and other people may be interested in, the alternate list, which includes a wide variety of items, is total cost was $2.5 million. We will not be able to fund all the alternates. Hopefully, we'll be able to fund a couple. Justin, I would like to ask Armin Miller sometime maybe in February to get a listing together of where we stand with lead, because we need to know how much of our contingency and or other dollars we're gonna have to allocate to meet that. Laura Little was very, very firm in the meeting that we have to meet lead in order for OFCC to match our project. And at 80%, we're not gonna just give that money away. And it's difficult to obtain because this is kind of like the gold level of the past. They keep making it more difficult. And there's things, because we're rural, we just don't qualify for. We're not in the city, so there's just certain things we can't do here that other schools can't. So I think it's very important, at least February, March timeframe, Garmin Miller does the analysis and lets us know what we have left to fund, because we may find we have to allocate some additional dollars to the lead
I
project.
feel like I saw some minutes from the meeting that's on her radar to do already, so.
So I have a couple other things.
Okay.
So I just want people to know the current budget number is about 32.2 million, up from 28.5. So there are some concerns. We put a lot of money into this new school, and hopefully we won't have a bunch of emergencies and other things. And as Tina said, hoping to fund the 5th grade wing to finish that out. And about that, there's some good news, sort of, that when we originally asked what we would save by not building it out, I think they quoted us about 1.2 million. Yeah, I don't remember specifically. I said about. Okay, but the new quote, I mean, it's a big difference.
Right. I would just.
Today's prices, is that it's about $500,000 less. Now that they've gone back and kind of looked at things and was able to take some time, because we asked for that very quickly. I'm not saying anything against them. It's just kind of some good news for us and some bad news. Now we have to put in more money right now, but when we do go to finish it off, it's a lot less money that we'll need to finish it off. So kind of a little both there. And I just want to say one thing about the alternates is when you're talking about not specific prices, keep in mind that all of the estimates that we're given are at today's prices.
Right.
So, because we know things are moving. So another reason that a lot of those alternates may not make it back into the project.
I would just like to talk about in that time frame from the time they went to bid until now, there's been such a tremendous amount of work done by Garmin Miller and especially by Peterson, working with their contractors that they have relationships with. Thankful for those relationships that they could work among their subcontractors to try and get really good pricing wherever they could, and to compare those bids and make sure that they were apples to apples and that everything lined up to get the very best price they possibly could at this time. And that's just, I can't even imagine the amount of work that they had to do that, because there's a tremendous amount of detail involved behind the scenes. Like Justin said, this is the first 4 pages or something of it. What we all saw was a tremendous number of pages beyond that. I remember the total count, 69. 69 pages of very item by item by item by item. So I'm very appreciative for all that work they put behind the scenes, because
You didn't see the two,
to
they
get that
had
to match.
2 binders and
Yeah.
2.
What they have
large-
is even beyond, far beyond that, so that's just tremendous, and I'm so grateful to get it to where it is now.
Mr. Gilbert, do you have anything to add on the subcommittee side?
No, I didn't have much chance to flip through all that.
Yeah. And
Skimmed it real quick.
yeah, and just for my edification, once we approve this, then it goes out, but there's gonna be a second round where we're gonna evaluate everything that's in this down to the fine tooth, right, looking at dollars and as it moves. There's another reconciliation.
Not necessarily a
There's-
reconciliation, but which folks need to understand is when those bidders submitted their packages, oftentimes they say your price is guaranteed for 1 day, or it's guaranteed for 30 days. Meaning that what's going to happen is essentially you're going to pay the bill upon delivery. So not necessarily a reconciliation, but just understand that because of the cost of the market and supply chain issues, they're not giving you a guarantee on how long that cost is going to be good for. So that's where the concerns come in.
But in the immediate future, like you're talking about the last 2 rounds where we had to sit down and decide what stays and what goes and put some things on the alternates, we do not have to do that because we raised the money.
Okay.
So for now, that's what he's saying.
Well, we shouldn't be seeing, hopefully, we're not gonna be seeing a $6 million discrepancy. Hopefully, we're.
No,
talking-
no, you won't.
No,
Yeah.
But I want to be upfront with people, and I don't want people to say that this cost a month ago, what happened?
Right,
Costs are going to change.
right.
That's why I get really hesitant about listing numbers, because numbers change and then people say they're made promises that you can't keep, so.
Yeah. Well, I think the current members of the board and new members of the board will continue, as well as the school leadership, is that the focus is on classroom space, maximizing as much as we possibly can with the dollars we're putting forward. And so I feel that you will continue down that path, and if there is opportunities to finish out the 5th grade, then it'll happen based on the financial position that the school is in.
Yeah, and one more comment. Julie mentioned the budget is now slightly over 32 million. I talked to Tina yesterday, and I just want to assure everybody, the money coming into the new construction fund, which is 30% of the TIF receipts, is approximately paying our annual debt payments. So in my opinion, our risk is pretty low on all this. We've got the money to cover the debt payments. That's where we could fall into problems if we were overspending, but we have the money projected to pay for the building. So I want to assure people, because that's an important part. If we overspend, then it's going to come back on us.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Hagan, you call the vote, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Letter B is consideration and approval of the Garmin-Miller contract amendment. As you are all well aware of, not only Garmin-Miller, but also Peterson, their percentage of what they get paid for the work that they do on the project is based on the total, it's a percentage of the total dollar amount of the project. And so because the total dollar amount of the project has increased, then the amount of payment that they receive also increases. We have not done an amendment to that contract since the budget has changed, and this keeps us up to date with what those percentages are.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the Garmin-Miller contract amendment? I'll move. Thank you, Danny. Do we have a second? Thank you, Julie, for the second. Discussion?
I have a little discussion on this one. I spoke to Tina, but it's such a short window. I'm just not sure. I have not been able to reconcile the numbers on this. I'm sure it's right, but it's, I'm not sure. I just can't get the number to come to what they've said. That my question was, has it always been 7.5% as is listed in the amendment? Or does that go up as the budget goes up?
Oh, the percentage? I thought
Plus the
the-
percentage, because remember when I think when we interviewed, they didn't give us the percentage, they said the state I thought they said
OFCC
this-
sets.
OFCC, yeah,
sets
somebody
the
said it, it was
Yeah.
out of their control.
Yeah, I think the percentage is set as the same. Looking at the document previously, it just looked like the primary overall budget number changed, and they did that 7.5% against that.
Okay, yeah, I'm just saying that the number doesn't come, well, I didn't do it against the whole one, the difference that they were asking for is a higher percentage than 7.5% against the difference in 28.5 to 32.2. So I'm okay with it. I just hope somebody gets some answers to if the percentages different. Tina has looked into that, just because, well, I mean, we just don't know the answer.
No.
It's just a
Yeah.
question, and this just came up, you know, a couple days ago, so. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and that amendment could change as well, right? So if the overall dollar amount reduced, and would be another amendment, or if it increases for some reason, there's the dollar amount would change.
Julie, I don't understand why would the percentage change?
I don't know.
Just said at the state level.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe it's a different percentage if you spend, you know, 0 to 20 million, 20 to 40. I don't know, because we weren't given any numbers. And also, they took some things out, as you saw in the amendment. So maybe there's just some things that I'm not aware of that have produced the number.
Yeah, I'll try to reach out to Garmin Miller after maybe the holiday and see if they have any additional information.
It's just nice to have numbers.
Yeah, and then Tina, maybe this is a kind of a follow-up question. If we do some of the alternates, then will their fee change based on the alternates we do?
I assume if it's a percentage cost of the total project, then yes.
Well, no, because they said those would come out of the
They
contingency money.
They indicated in an email that their cost was not going to increase.
Oh, okay.
Right, because those would come out of the contingency, and that's.
Well, I
already covered.
I didn't know, that's why I'm asking. I truly didn't know.
I think,
Okay.
doing the
If
in the
it's
letter,
included in that
yeah,
700,000.
we changed the budget on this one, but it in there talked about the contingencies.
I just put up their contract, and it was 7.5% in October 20.
Yeah, and it may have been a slightly different amount, October 20, what was it, 28.5 million or something?
7.5% of the.
I believe the change in the dollar amount for the contract is 7.5%
Right.
times the
The
new
budget was
budget
28.
amount.
It was
Right.
exactly 20.5.
Okay. All right, that wasn't in there, sorry. I magically made stuff up, apparently.
I'm sure they have an explanation, I'm just saying, I just like when the numbers come out, as you know.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to Garmin Miller, because by allowing us to order some of the athletics equipment ourselves, that's saving us that management fee. So that's a huge benefit to us, and thank you to Garmin Miller for that.
Their compensation is on page 20 of the contract that was in the October 2020 minutes. For meeting in board notes.
As I said, I'm sure they came to this somehow, I just couldn't get it to come out based on the 7.5% and what they
There's
put
some
in the
other-
amendments.
There's some other conditions in there about LFI and.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, I probably just don't know all of the things that got to the amount that they based it on.
Yeah, there's some fees based on tax budget sheet that are included into this.
Okay.
But the percentage, the overall percentage is the same.
Okay.
Any other discussion items? All right, Ms. Hageman, could you call the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes,
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Excellent.
On the agenda this evening, also for consideration and potential approval, is item C. Approval of a Pioneer Electric Cooperative Incorporated Agreement for three-phase electric distribution service. Obviously, we'll be using Pioneer Electric to provide three-phase electric, not only to our K-5 building, but also the athletic stadium. And this agreement will allow them to pull from the Pioneer substation. I believe it's located off of Agenbrod, and then it'll come up Agenbrod, and then over 201, and then to the existing site. But just to be upfront with folks, it will be a little bit different because this site here is on DPNL. Our K-5 site will be on Pioneer. I just hope one of the two doesn't drop service at one point. So I don't know what you do with one building with electric and another building without.
That will, I think that will.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm saying it now, so people understand.
Why is the high school out and the elementary still going?
Why is the high school out in school, the elementary is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Our DPNL is always very reliable, but it's not the other.
Our Pioneer has been as reliable as DPNL. We had to cut her.
This may have been years and years.
I was gonna say, I've always heard the opposite,
Yeah.
that especially when something happens at Pioneer, it seems like they are out there
They
like
are.
that, and DPNL is like.
We've had very, very good service.
Can
where
you
we
stay
live.
home for the next day and a half?
Yeah, that happened.
Right.
Right down.
With this, are we able to request potentially that that Pioneer remove the power distribution lines that run on our side of Agdenbrock where the school is? I just see that as in the future becoming an issue for us long-term.
Can you explain explain what you mean, I guess?
So where we're building the school, they have all the telephone poles
Yeah.
coming down and power
Yeah.
lines on our side of Agdenbrock, and they have power lines running on the other side of Agdenbrock.
On both sides.
Both sides. That should all be Pioneer up there.
I thought these were DPNL that got added.
They are.
They're not Pioneer.
These right here are DPNL
No,
on 201.
no, that run down Agdenbrock, this
Oh,
side of Agdenbrock.
okay.
They're on both sides of the road. So the request would be is that they put all the distribution on the other side of the road other than ours. That way we don't have all these telephone poles running.
Right.
Because if we're gonna be putting another school in
Yeah.
eventually down the road, that's gonna be interfering with traffic lanes, and in the event that we're gonna widen the road
I see
You know,
what you're saying.
down as we progress, that those are gonna need to move to one side or the other. We would appreciate them to go to the other. Just move the distribution to the other side,
Yeah, we can have our discussion about that.
or have them bury it.
DPNL on the side and Pioneer on the other.
Yeah, I'm not
It
sure.
might be
I'm wondering that too,
I
because
can tell you
why
on
do they
the,
have to?
on the west side of 201, those are all newly installed DPNL poles. And they placed a new pole right smack dab in the middle of our upcoming driveway, which is gonna have to be relocated.
Yeah,
It's pretty confusing how it all runs
yeah.
right up to each other.
Did Pioneer ever give an explanation as to why they have to run them all the way from the substation? I mean, kind of along with that, is that Pioneer on the other side of Agdenbrock?
I have no idea. I have Pioneer in my house and I live on Ross, so
And you have DPNL.
On mine in Rossville.
yeah. So we're on the east, I'm on the west side of 201, and you're on the east side of 201. So.
Yeah, I'm like 3 houses from their substation and I'm on DPNL. So there's no, I don't know what the line is. I just wonder why they're running all the way from there. If this is their area, why can't they tap in what's there?
Well, we have a tap in here, but it's DPNL. That's why we were hoping that they were able to use what was implemented or installed with this project. But they weren't willing to play in the sandbox.
Yeah, what I was asking was why does Pioneer have to come all the way from
I think they're gonna bring
there? If this is their area already,
I think they're bringing a dedicated line at a higher power to a transformer substation here on the grounds. So they're gonna have to. kind
I
of
would
like the
assume it's
DPNL
something like
did.
that. I was just wondering if they ever said why.
Yeah, I think that's a commercial grade, 3-phase.
3-phase. Most houses don't have 3-phase.
So. And potentially we're assisting in advancing the growth of the systems. Any other discussion? Ms. Hageman, would you call the vote, please?
Did we get a first and a second?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
we jumped right to discussion.
We sure did.
We sure did.
I did. Do we have a motion to approve the Pioneer Electric Cooperative Incorporated Agreement for the 3-phase electrical distribution service? Thanks, Lyda.
I'll second.
Second, thanks Julie for the second. Any discussion?
Any further?
Any further discussion? Apologies. No, Ms. Hagan, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Letter D on the agenda this evening for consideration and potential approval. D and C go hand in hand. This is approval of the right-of-way easement for Pioneer Electric to install their three-phase electric. You can go through and see the terms and the conditions of the agreement. And then they also provide a site map as well, I believe, which shows kind of a diagram of where the power is coming from and where it's going to run and how it's going to be mapped out on the site based on the roads and also where the power stations are located.
So yeah, they're exactly where it's showing that power coming from. There's new poles and power on that side of the road already. And there's poles and power on the opposite side that aren't being shown, so I don't know, maybe they'll be, ones.
I'd have to ask.
Yeah, but it does make a unique stop on that side where it makes a turn before you get to this house. And I see it go back and over, so maybe they're bringing through their normal distribution cycle there. Could we potentially, charge them $187,297 for the easement?
I'm thinking we make it monthly. In perpetuity.
That'd be acceptable.
I know.
They can also tell us, oh, you guys can go deal with it, so I would prefer we not do
Yeah. So,
There have been I have experience where easements were more than $1. I will say that that's few and far between and never 187,000. So, not my experience, but
okay.
it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Okay. Typically you give them the easement so they can bring the power to your
Right,
site.
exactly. It's for our benefit.
Yeah. So that's exactly what they would say.
Doesn't
Charge
hurt
you
to ask though.
357,000 now to bring the water. Cost of procurement of the land. So, got it.
Maybe they
After
could
the
make a
map, I was like,
donation
that map
to
doesn't look
Yeah.
like what it
towards
says
our
it
fifth
works.
grade meeting.
So I struggled with that a little bit. I was trying to justify the word description with the map, and I was like, this doesn't look the same to me. I guess we're going off the map, not the words, or what are we doing? Because usually it's the opposite of contract, you go off the words,
Right.
right? And I don't know, it just doesn't seem to match to me. So maybe I'm just dumb, but it just says, it doesn't read right. Well, guys, tell me.
I didn't look at the map, I just read the words. Well,
I just
because
looked at the map.
I'm not good at maps, so
The
because
words
I
make it
always
sound-
look at the words because that's what the contract's
Yeah,
driven
and the
by,
words
so
make it
I
sound like the
will,
easement goes just along Agabroad, like that's it.
right.
The map kind of doesn't look like that so much.
Because
Because they
it's just
drew
coming
all
straight
this
in.
other stuff coming in, right?
I
So,
have a problem with southeast
Well,
and
but
southwest.
that's to get to the
Probably
stadium though, right?
I mean, I understand,
And school.
it feels to me they need that, that
Right.
makes sense to me, but that doesn't seem like what this says. So that would. be
Yeah,
my-
it looks like it's
my
coming
only
off
question.
Studebaker. Through somebody's yard. Over to Eggenbrod. And then crossed.
Yeah, Studebaker, some station on Studebaker.
Certainly
So,
ask for
I don't know.
clarification from.
I would
down
just
here.
ask, yeah,
Yeah.
that at some point, I
Yeah.
don't mind approving this pending that question, but.
Yeah, because it looks like they were, really running it straight across, even for us, and then it even shows like a future drop in where the next potential building is from our master facility plan, right there. So But none of that is on our side of Broad. So to have the easement run along Broad is
Yeah.
kind of unique.
And they just say 40 feet in the center of Bagon Road for the entire length of the frontage. I'm like, that's not what that says. The map says it all.
Right.
So. I don't know. And the code goes on, what they're gonna do with it. So that's my main question.
Okay, I'll follow up and see what this.
Yeah, it's almost like they're asking for the easement for the entire frontage of the property on Broad. School.
Yeah, I didn't notice that discrepancy
Yeah.
either, and then it even says. It says 40 feet and then 15 and 10. Also, they probably need to be made aware that eventually we intend to. Widen Aggie Road.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping they would move it over, because if we're gonna widen it, it'd be easier to widen it into our property versus our neighbors. So,
But that's not how it works, right? There's a right of way that goes into both sides, and
Yes.
that's what they are gonna do. So.
And it kind of
Yeah.
talks about, 15 feet both sides of the center line, like you mean center line of the property along Aggie Road, like what? So it's just, the wording is just weird. So,
I would just ask for clarification, and if it was greater than what we kind of thought on that.
Yeah. I'll get a
What's the
hold of
reasoning
them.
for it?
yeah,
Take a response, and if I get a response email, I'll forward it on to you guys.
Should be
That'd be
great.
great. they're essentially referring to our whole tract of land, whole 132 acres, and like.
Yeah, that's a
I
lot.
don't, can we narrow the scope a little bit?
Well, I mean, if this isn't exactly what we need, we can always pass it in the version. I mean, is there, I guess my question to you, is there
Well-
any danger in this?
Well, they indicated that if it doesn't get passed, then the work does not continue.
So, yeah, sure.
I mean, you could wait till the next board meeting, but they're gonna stop the electric work.
It does allow for even us passing it here with questions that if it is amended, then you'd be able to vote on amended right away. But I do think if they're looking for a lot more than what we need, then there should be some bargaining chips with that in the overall cost. So I will agree to get it to our buildings, and then the rest we will negotiate. So,
Do we have 40 feet between the school and the road?
well, that's part of the railroad easement, actually.
Part of the setbacks.
We have 35 feet from the center line.
To the school.
No, for the road easement itself. The township owns 35 feet from the center line, both directions. So that's probably why they said 40. So it puts it into that right out of the road right away.
They have 35 feet from the center line on both sides.
I mean, I could do something like this, like 60 feet total width down the center. Something that. How about it?
It seems like the houses are closer to the road line.
Some of them-
Some
Some of them are, some of them sit in the easement. Some of the houses were there prior to the road getting that width as well. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the right-of-way easement with questions with Pioneer Rural Electric? Thank you, Lida. You have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori, for the second. Any further discussion? I just agree in the statement of discussion would be as if it, based on the questions, it turns out greater than what we originally thought, that we should enter into a new agreement. Any other discussion? Ms. Hagan, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
No.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Next is approval of the resignation delegating authority for project related change orders below a certain threshold.
I guess I'll take this one. It was suggested at the core team meeting, and GMP meeting, I guess, that we have someone, the board give authority to someone to approve change orders up into the contingency amount, so that we didn't have to stop everything to get a change order approved. The contingency amount in the budget is $713,215. And so this allows Mr. Ferks, the superintendent, to approve various change orders up to that amount without board approval. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell, right? Is there anything else I'm supposed to add to that? I think that's pretty much it. Now, that's any, yeah, he could have one change order that's 713,000. I doubt that would happen. I would be very hopeful that that wouldn't happen. Or we could have anywhere from 25 to 35, meaning that if they hit rock or if they have conditions that were not in the bid documents, that they need to have a change order or an increase, or in rare occasions, I've seen some reductions, mostly it's an increase. But, you know, if they have something that changes the scope of the work while they're out there, the unknowns, they provide a change order to the superintendent. And he can approve it up to the amount of the contingency. Anything above the contingency would go to the board for approval.
Okay.
So that was suggested by Garmin Miller to keep things moving along, because, you know, sometimes decisions need to be made for efficiency purposes. And so this is the resolution I was able to get from Ennis and Britton. Did I get that on the board agenda for your review? Yeah, Ennis and Britton is a legal team. I tried Densmore and Scholl, but they didn't have any construction. They didn't, you know, have any sample language, and they suggested we use Ennis and Britton, and we've used them in the past. So I reached out to the construction attorneys, and they have the language readily available. So
Okay.
questions?
Well, I think along with this, Tina, this, even though Justin does have this authority, the idea is that we would be getting regular updates on what this money is spent for during core meetings, during facilities meetings, and during board meetings, correct?
That is my understanding. Yes, that, you know, any change orders are going to be presented to the overall team, right? In addition, you know, during the core team meetings, I think that's what was stated at the last core team.
So this isn't like blank check. I mean, there will be communication associated with this, and the prime reason again for doing this is to keep the project moving along.
Yeah, I would think though, when we're looking at the change orders as we go forward, I think the biggest ideology that I would place on that is focusing on ensuring that we're on classroom space is the key, I think, to this. I don't know how fast everything's gonna go. You know, will this, I mean, potentially will the stadium be done before the school building, or?
The plan is for the stadium, well, it could be done construction wise, but the first official contest will still be played in the fall of 23.
Mhm.
Obviously, it doesn't take as long to construct that as it does a school building.
Right.
I know they plan on this spring starting the stadium. So yeah, it'll be done, but there won't be any contest until fall of 23. I mean, it more than likely could be done early summer,
Mhm.
this summer.
Yeah.
Where teams could use it for practices, community could walk on it. But an official school athletic event would be in August.
Right. Okay.
Maybe some scrimmages, those kind of things.
Something in discussion now.
I'll just ask the question. Sure.
Okay, so I have a couple things. I got asked from the community. The first question was, does it include both the stadium and the K-5, the contingency money? And the answer to that, I believe, is yes. So that was one thing that maybe we could break out the money so that we don't exceed, as you said, focus on the classrooms, so that we don't exceed the contingency for one or the other. Did that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. And for the communication, possibly adding some verbiage that says with subsequent approval by the board or something that, I mean, the board could probably never vote no because the money would already be approved, but just to keep the communications flowing, to make sure that. And then also, I was asked about a threshold within a threshold. So could there be another smaller threshold where maybe after 50,000 or something, they come to the board for approval rather than being able to sign for the whole 700,000? Just to say if it's a high ticket, high dollar change, that the board would approve it in advance, maybe through a special meeting.
Well, if that were the case, why would we even have this?
Well, for something, I mean, I don't know what that dollar amount is. I just threw out that number because we used that 50,000 before. But, you know, just to make sure that there's some follow-up. You're talking about a big ticket item, you're talking about $50,000. And it's a good chunk out of the 700,000. Just telling you that's what I was asked.
Okay. Tina, what do you feel comfortable with if we're looking at the dollar amounts? Do you feel comfortable with just doing it to the contingency total dollar amount there, or do you feel like it should be less to be fiscally frugal, or do you think that'll slow down the process and kind of looking, you know,
Right.
and the money management side, what's
Right.
going to create more havoc for you to track, or what's going to be?
Well, the important thing is open communication. When a change order is signed, their purchase order has to be issued. We have to make sure we got all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, you know, so, I mean, I don't think this is something that has to be passed tonight if you guys want to discuss it, because you shouldn't have change orders until another month or 2 or 3 or 4, I hope, you know, hope they don't have any problems in the first month. But I think this is gonna be a fast moving project, and I've been on other projects, and unless you wanna call a board meeting once a week, or, you know, emergency board meetings, you know, once you get in the thick of it, you may end up having to call a lot of emergency board meetings just to approve a change order. So if communication is the issue, then maybe it's subsequent board approval. You know, so he has the authority to sign off on it, the work gets started, and then it goes on to the board agenda and reviewed by the board. So that everybody feels like it's been open and communicated and everybody's aware of it. That would be my suggestion. I've never done it this way before. When it was suggested, I went, you know, we usually did the scramble and did emergency board meetings, so this was, but I did talk to the legal, you know, attorneys, and they said, yeah, this is common. So this is a common practice now to keep the project moving along. I mean, ultimately, it's Mr. Ferks that'll be signing everything. So as long as he tells me what we need to add to and to whom, we should be all set to go.
So I think, you know, we're talking about these change orders. I mean, I guess it could be anything, but typically it's going to be an increase in something they have found, increase in costs. or,
Right. And it'll
Now,
make-
does that come out of this one though? I was a little confused on that because we have other contingency money
Mhm.
for market price.
For market price changes, right? So if that's, yeah, it's different. So if they, like the roofing contractor, I think they said could only hold their price for a day. And then, you know, some others said maybe 30 days or whenever it arrives, you're paying whatever the price may be. So, yeah, that's the market contingency fund, that 400 extra that they have out there. Yeah,
So that, but that's what I was asking, because he kind of used the price increase as an example. That would not come out of the 700,000.
That's for
That was
materials. I was
not-
just looking at,
right,
if it took them 20 more hours to get through the bedrock that they
Gotcha.
didn't
They
forecast.
didn't
That's
know that there, yeah, there
that
was.
would be in that
Like-
versus material.
And the project that I worked on before, it was clay, and we had to add more lime stabilization before we could do the foundation. So it was like, okay, we estimated this much lime, now we need this much more lime. And the project that I was at, it was dirt. We had to have more dirt brought in. So it's those kind of things that, you know, they estimate to the best of their ability, knowing what they know about the sign. Then they get in here and they start doing the work and they, you know, it's not, you know, I've not had it not so bad where they gave us a lot of money back. Sometimes you get a little bit, but not a lot, but most of the time it's, oh, we hit something bad. You know, so, I mean, like I said, I've never done it this way, but it's legal and it does seem to be more efficient. And, you know, and it also is the timing of the change orders. So it could be, you know, you're gonna get more change orders on the building, or you could get more change orders on the stadium based upon that will eat up
The
that,
conditions.
based upon the conditions and how quickly the contractors are working. So it's hard to say, you know, all that contingency money is gonna go to the K through 5 building, or, you know, this much contingency is gonna go to the stadium. We don't know until they get in there and start working.
So, but the contingent, so I guess that's one of the questions. Do we legally have to break it up? Stadium versus K5, because it's based on those costs.
Julie, we took $500,000 out of the athletic budget to settle GMP2. I mean, we've shifted money before, so I'm not following.
Yeah,
your train of thought.
but it was, I mean, the logic behind that was because it was infrastructure, right? So
Yes, but that was a huge expense for athletics to have to foot that they didn't know about.
So, okay, so let me ask you this question. If all 700,000 went to the stadium, are you okay with that? If all 700,000 of the contingency money went to the stadium?
Probably not, but I also trust that Justin is gonna make sensible
I mean,
decisions.
we currently have
Right,
committees of this building and also the stadium, where those folks are involved in those discussions, whether it be selection of scoreboards or I mean, so it's not like we don't have board representation on both our building project and also our stadium project.
But these decisions will be made before that core meeting happens.
Would I
Right?
be correct in saying that since the elementary building will be done first, that work's going to happen? I don't know what you said.
Vice versa, stadium will be done.
Stadium
first.
will be first.
That's why I was asking. Right.
Stadium more than likely will be finished first, but I don't know
Okay.
how much
Well, that's
sooner.
Briefly first.
Okay, I was talking about the bedrock issue.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
That aspect of the construction, not the actual building itself.
correct.
So this contingency fee then would be subject to the elementary building first, probably anyway, correct?
That's a good
In
question.
general.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you they're gonna start that infrastructure, well, they're doing infrastructure now, but doing the foundation work right after the fall and the spring.
But I mean, although we're talking about those things, just using that ground as the primary, it could be because we need to move an air duct from here to there.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be multiple pieces, you know, that
Driveway
fall
has a
into
light
it.
pole in it.
Yeah, the drive with a light pole in it. So.
Well, I mean, I would fully anticipate that those major decisions, I mean, just because you don't have a core team doesn't mean you can't have a phone call with the people on that committee and get their input on the decision and share amongst the collective group before decisions are made.
Yeah, we've already approved the budget that included that, so it's already been board approved. But I get the issue of doing the changes because of those threshold limits that are there in dollar amounts. I mean, technically, we've already approved it all, that 713,000 is for our contingencies already, so.
And we can certainly track and report to the board all the change orders as they come along, you know.
Yeah.
The suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, add to the board agenda building update, and say this is the budget, contingency budget, these are the change orders that have been received and what the purpose is. As you stated, Julie, if he signs off on them, they're, and we can't get subsequent board approval, because the board says no, oops, what am I supposed to, we've already
Well, I think
issued,
it's- We're double saying yes to it.
Right, and so, maybe just a board update that includes a spreadsheet or something that says this is how much we approved for this and this is, and that way it is communicated to the public as well as the board.
You brought up a great point, and I would say probably under the superintendent section would be construction, maybe not for your initial stuff, but then underneath that would be construction update, and in there, one of the items would be change orders.
Yes,
Balance and
Mhm.
actions that have taken, so everybody's informed of what's going on. But this will allow for the construction to move forward without any delays or waiting to get everybody together. So. Does that seem to make sense to you, Mr. Gilbert?
Well,
You're in that business of.
you get a change order for $500,000. I don't see you just blindly signing it. You're probably gonna talk to a couple people before you.
you might have to pick me up off the floor.
Yeah.
You'd have to wake me up, throw some water. But yeah.
I think that Justin has like the wherewithal to say, but this one I might want to call a meeting. I mean, I think that makes sense. That even if he has the authority, he may not use it at that stage.
And I think we're all on the same page here. Our first and
Right.
foremost priority is the K-5. So if the money is available, I think we need to put the money into that building before we do the state. If that's the concern. But I'll also say that we've done that so far, which is why we went out and almost raised $1 million in additional funding on our own without taking away from the K-5 budget.
Yes.
And we've taken money from the K-5 budget and put it into the stadium and added additional fundraising. And that 500,000 for infrastructure. So it's not like we've played favoritism to the stadium over the building project.
I would agree with that. For sure. I think we've laid out a really nice balance between the two. But I think just laying in the fact that we're the focus is on maximizing classroom space, I think that is key. And I mean, it still amazes me today, the amount that's been raised on the athletic side from support from our community.
Hey, good news, we just got our $10,000 check today
Nice.
from an anonymous donor, so thank you to that person.
Yes.
Wow.
So we continue to raise money for it, because we know the K-5 building comes first.
Yeah.
And so we want to have a nice stadium, but we're not going to take away money from the school budget to get the stadium. We're raising the money.
And doing very well at it. Kudos to everyone that's involved, athletic booster, and so outstanding. Okay.
Yeah, and I will say from a community's perspective, I think the businesses and other organizations have really stepped up to the plate. I mean, we were at close to 900,000. And I think really where we need to focus this spring, and by we, I mean the Bethel Legacy Committee, is working on the individuals in this community, because this is a generous community. We're asking 300 people or 300 organizations, 300 entities to consider giving $1,000. I mean, that would put the athletic stadium in really good footing to be able to do some of the other things that right now we don't have funding for. So hopefully you'll be hearing more about that in a couple months.
If you can't do the 1,000, there's other opportunities within the legacy to do a different denomination donation. That's less than that, but obviously that's the big part is our legacy wall, but we've also incorporated some other options for people who may not have that kind of money either.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve a resolution delegating authority to approve project-related change orders below a certain threshold or
713,000. That's the-
of the contingency amount? We have a motion. Thank you, Lida, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Hageman, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
All right. Executive session. We have items that we, yes, we do. Item.
I was asked to add
Yep.
3.
Okay. We have items 1 and 3 that are needed for executive session. For those items that replace, is there any thought that we potentially would have board action following those? No? Okay. I have a motion to go into,
It has to be on the topic, doesn't it?
It was.
it was listed
It was on the notice. I said we were
On the
going to do
notice.
an executive session.
for those.
Okay.
I learned, Julie.
Okay.
Jacob, I will make a motion that we move to executive session.
Thank you,
I'll
Lori.
second.
Thank you, Julie, for the second. Any further discussion? Based on information provided, there's no intent to do any voting or take board action following the executive session. And we will invite Natalie Donahue to the executive. Future board member, in just a few weeks. Ms. Hagan, could you call the vote?
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Reese.
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Reese. Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
6 and 1.
All right,
That's all we have.
time is exercise 6:01. Thank you all for joining us tonight.